Now, for a reaction from the Arab community, I'm joined now from Los Angeles by Hussein Ibish. He's the communications director for the American Arab Anti-Discrimination Committee. Mr. Ibish, thank you for joining us.
Great to be with you.
Mr. Bush calls this plan historic and courageous. What words would you use to describe this plan?
I would call it futile and arrogant. I think that what Ariel Sharon has always wanted to do was avoid negotiating with Palestinians. And in fact, since he was elected in February of 2001, he has refused to negotiate with any group of Palestinians over anything. What he wants is for Israel to negotiate with the United States the terms which will be then imposed on the Palestinians. So yeah, he wants to withdraw the troops and the settlers from Gaza, which is something that almost all non-religious Israelis have wanted to do for a long time, but keep control of the strip of land that is the border between Gaza and Egypt, and move those soldiers and settlers to the West Bank, strengthen Israel's control over East Jerusalem and its environs, strengthen the control in the Jordan Valley, and basically, in the long run, create a kind of quadruply bifurcated nominal Palestinian state completely encompassed in a greater Israel. And this Palestinian state would have very little sovereign power and very little, it wouldn't really be a state, but it would have political responsibility for the 3.5 million Palestinians living under Israeli autonomy. That way, I think he hopes that Israel can retain control over the occupied territories without having to give Palestinians the rights of citizenship or real independence either.
I'm not entirely sure what you mean by quadruply bifurcated.
Well,
but
I
think I understand what you're saying.
Okay. What I mean precisely is that one part of it would be in Gaza, and then there would be 3 chunks in the West Bank, entirely surrounded by this giant wall that he's building, which would be each separated from itself and each entirely encompassed by the Israeli state. And I think he wants to call this the Palestinian state and basically negotiate that with the United States and impose it on the Palestinians. It won't work because ultimately the conflict is not between Israel and the United States, it's between Israel and the Palestinians. And negotiations between Bush and Sharon only go so far.
The deal seems to be, and you pointed it out, I think, very clearly, that's, well, the Israelis will pull out of Gaza. Right. As long as the Palestinians say, well, it's okay for some of these settlements to stay in the West Bank, and that's no longer a sticking point.
They're not even asking the Palestinians. They're asking the Americans.
I understand what you're saying, and it was very clear from today's meeting that this was a meeting of 2 sort of like-minded leaders on this issue. What has changed, though, today is that the United States has said, this seems like a pretty good plan. It kind of changes the direction from the old roadmap we were just talking about a year ago.
It is. It definitely is. What it does is it abandons international law. It abandons this mountain of Security Council resolutions, which were all voted for by the United States, and certainly many of them drafted by the United States, that have at their core the idea of the illegitimacy of the acquisition of territory by war. Now we want to say to the Israelis in the United States, we want to say to them, it's okay if you acquire East Jerusalem and its environments and you acquire the Jordan Valley through war. You can keep that because you really want it and you're insisting on keeping it, so somehow that's all right. So in that sense, it's a real reversal of policy. On the other hand, in a way, this isn't anything new. This is very similar to what President Clinton and Ehud Barak were trying to foist on the Palestinians in Camp David in the summer of 2000. So when the United States makes noises about formally assuring Israel that the Palestinian refugees won't have the right to return to their original homes in Israel, or that Israel doesn't have to return to the borders of June 4, 1967, that isn't really a new position. It's just strengthened and formalized.
So, Mr. Ibish, if what we are hearing, what you're saying is correct, and your words are backed up by the Palestinian leadership saying that's okay, this means clearly the complete end of the peace process. That's coming from Yasser Arafat. If what you're saying is true, that here we are with yet another proposal for peace, call it what you want, but that's the name it was given earlier today, that just simply won't get off the ground.
No.
How does the situation get any better?
Yeah, it's very difficult to see how that would happen because basically, you know, all hopes for the past 25 years or so have rested with the idea of a partition, of the creation of a Palestinian state in the occupied territories to live alongside Israel. And it seems pretty clear that no Israeli government, the Barak government wouldn't talk about this seriously. Certainly the Sharon government is interested in something completely different. The United States made some good rhetorical gestures by endorsing the idea of a Palestinian state, but in fact has done everything to support Sharon moving to make that impossible. I fear that when, at the end of the day, if the wall is completed, if the settlements in the West Bank are strengthened, if Sharon is given a few more years to intensify Israeli control in East Jerusalem and the West Bank, that really a partition will become impossible.
Right.
And what we'll be looking at is a quest to found a democratic binational state for both Israelis and Palestinians. That's going to be a very long and painful process, though, because it means both of them overcoming their own very strongly rooted national political identities.
Okay.
And I just think that would take ages.
Hussein Ibish, as always, thank you very much for your insight today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
And coming up next, we'll find out if this new plan has any hope of bringing stability to the Middle East. Stay